All right, you are now live.
Okay, thank you. Hello and welcome to the Accessibility Advisory Committee meeting for May 12th, 2025. It is 4:08 p.m. This meeting is called to order at 4:08 p.m. First, we're going to start with our land acknowledgement. The Halifax Regional Municipality is located in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and traditional lands of the Mi'kmaq people. The municipality acknowledges the peace and friendship treaties signed in this territory and recognizes that we are all treaty people. We'll start today's meeting with a roll call and AV check. When I call your name, I will ask each member to ensure their video and microphone are working. Our first on the list is Councillor Laura White for District 7.
Good evening, everybody.
Thank you. We have next Councillor Jean Saint-Amand, District 16.
Hey all.
Hello. Anne Sinclair.
Hello, this is Anne.
Okay. Jamil Sino.
Hey, this is Jamil.
Is Kathy Stevenson here?
Kathy Stevenson hasn't joined the meeting yet.
Okay. Glenn Babcock.
Present.
Thank you. Oliver Keith.
I'm here.
Okay. Rochelle Manette.
I am here, thank you.
Great. Céline Vautour, me over here, obviously works. And we have regrets from Councillor Trish Purdy for District 4 and Nicholas Harris. So now for the approval of minutes for April 14, 2025, I will now ask if there are any errors or omissions for the minutes of April 14th, 2025 meeting. If there are none, I would invite a member to move the following motion: that the minutes of April 14th, 2025 Accessibility Advisory Committee meeting be approved as presented.
So moved.
Moved. Okay, so now I just need a seconder.
I'll second it. Oh,
Two
people. It works.
It's almost like a game show. Who's gonna be the first seconder? Okay, so I'll credit it to Jamil because he's new. All right, so so Jean Saint-Amand as the mover and Jamil as the seconder. I'll call for the question. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Okay.
Aye.
Aye. And anybody opposed? Nope. Okay, so the motion has been carried. Now for the approval of the order of business and approval of additions and deletions. I will now move on. And if, okay, sorry, I messed up. We will now move on to the approval of the order of business for today's meeting. To our legislative assistant, are there any changes to today's agenda?
There are no changes to today's agenda. However, I would suggest, due to the availability of our presenters, that a member request that item 9.1.1 be considered prior to item 7.3.1.
Okay, and that is okay. So in this part, what is the?
I will move to do what Elizabeth said. I can't remember exactly. Oh, to move item 9.1.1 to do it prior to 7.3.1. Is that the thing?
Yes. So
yeah,
that
okay.
request, then you'll be looking for a motion to approve the agenda as amended, and you'll just need a mover and a seconder for that.
Oh, okay, all right. So to move the that the agenda be approved as amended. Okay, this requires a mover. Who would be the mover?
I will be the mover, Rochelle.
Rochelle will be the mover. And then we have Jean Saint-Amand as the seconder. Okay. I'll call for the question. All those in favor say aye or raise hands.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Anyone opposed? No? Okay, great. So let's see. Okay, so business arising out of the minutes. There are no business arising out of the minutes. Call for declaration of conflict of interest. I will now ask anyone, if anyone has a conflict of interest, to declare as a result of an item on today's agenda. So it appears there are no declarations of conflict of interest, and our meeting will proceed. Considerations or deferred business. There are none. And to our clerk, has any correspondence been received?
No correspondence has been received by the clerk's office.
Okay. And to our clerk, are there any petitions to be presented?
No present.
Okay, great. So presentation 7.3.1, we will now actually move to the other presentation, which I'm scrolling down to name, which is 9.1.1, discussion of the 2025 Town Hall. And I think I have it right? Yes, did I miss anything? No, I did not.
No,
Okay.
you're good.
All right, so now I will now lead a discussion regarding the 2025 Town Hall planning. Staff are looking for the committee to decide on 3 things at this meeting today. So the first one is what business unit representatives will sit on the panel. The second, how many booths in which business units could present, like how many spaces we have. We have about a maximum of 8 booths to decide on, whether we need 4, whether we need 8. That's part of the discussion. The third part of this discussion is, does the committee want the chair to invite a representative from the province to get in contact with, like, example, the Accessibility Directorate, and also the Opportunities and Social Development, which was formerly named the Department of Community Services. So yeah, last bit on the provincial thing. I have a lot to share, but I'm at the end of the list, so I'll get to that. But I would love to hear if you have any suggestions on that. So hopefully I covered it well. If there are any questions, guys, please ask. And the first on the list is Councillor Laura White. No? You don't have anything to share?
No, I'm fine.
You're fine? Okay. Councillor Jean Saint-Amand, do you have anything that you have to share, like as in what business units you have interest in having at this town hall meeting?
Not specifically. I mean, we had a pretty comprehensive list from the last meeting that I thought made perfect sense. And really, it's just a matter of identifying the right proponent to be the participant in the meeting itself.
Right. Yeah. So that's the thing we sent, just for everybody, just because if I go down the list, and I just want, because I can understand, like, let's say, for example, we would like to have Halifax Transit come in, but like which part of Halifax Transit do we, like what part of that business do we invite? Like what department of that, sorry if I'm stuttering on words today. It's a hard day for me for words.
There are certain team members that are responsible for community outreach, and so they may be the right audience to be participants in this as well.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking specifically of Patricia Hughes, for example, whom I've had some great conversations with about the fact that they are launching public consultations on some route adjustments and some new routes being proposed as well.
Okay, yeah.
And so it's her team that will wind up doing these public consultations and taking the feedback from the community. So I would anticipate that would be a group within transit that would be very adept at this type of consultation with the public.
Okay. I think one thing that I'm wondering of how we could maybe even do this at the meeting, because we were talking about slides, and Elizabeth, you have your hand up. I'm even wondering if we could put the list on the screen.
So I was going to say, I know we have the list and the card, and I can definitely display that and share that as well.
Yeah.
The other thing I was going to say, in the minutes for the town hall, for our last meeting's discussion on the town hall, the 7 business units that were discussed or kind of like put forth as wanting, the committee members want to see these business units on the panel, I can share kind of a little screenshot of the minutes. So
sure, yeah, okay,
if the committee wants to take a look at that, 1 second. So kind of you can see there says these were the business units identified at the last meeting. It was Public Works, Halifax Transit, Property, Fleet and Environment, Parks and Rec, Planning and Development, Halifax Regional Police and Community Safety. So I guess kind of if the committee's having a discussion of what business units they'd like to see, if
Okay.
like,
Yeah.
yes, like I know transit has been identified as yes, definitely, and the committee could certainly ask for representatives from both transit kind of engagement and
Yeah.
Accessibus if that's something they'd be interested in. I
I'd be
guess some of it
interested
is,
in,
yeah.
okay, I like, for example, I'd be interested because we had customer service at our presenting last January. Like that would be nice to have them back and have the public talk to customer service as an example. But I see that Laura, you have your hand up. So if something sparked, I'd like to hear what you would like to share.
Well, just that kind of the scope of this panel, like how much time is taking place, is what was done last year, like that's 7 groups.
Mhm.
And I would just think we should send it to the top executive director in each of those groups, and they would decide who would be best to speak to the public. But is 7 too many for a panel, I guess is my question. Usually a panel's 4 or 5 max.
Yeah, I agree with that because myself as well, I've been kind of seeing like what are the four main
That we're
things
trying to do pick 4, like
yeah. And again, like I know that this part of the meeting is not as because usually I'm supposed to be talking more at the end, so this one is a little harder for me to go around because again, like community safety, we definitely want community safety, and then community safety means food security, housing, and homelessness. Like those are 2 that people are still very concerned about because housing and homelessness really concern, and food security concerns disabled people to quite a degree, right? Like they represent a high percentage of homelessness even in this city. So that's it. It's like that would be like a focus on community safety, transit services, and then I'm looking at even just Halifax fire and emergencies would also be kind of great because I know that they may have something to present that they're working on. So yeah, I think this is kind of Elizabeth, I just wanted to ask, like, do I go strict with this list, like a speakers list for this, or do we kind of make this as kind of a communal meeting?
The speakers list is only if you wanted to utilize that, but
Oh,
definitely
okay.
for a discussion, it's just to make sure you know everyone's name is included on the list, but
Okay.
it doesn't necessarily have to, you don't necessarily have to use the speakers
So
list
we can
in this
bounce around. Okay,
situation.
that's great. Because Oliver had his hand up as well, so I'd like to see. Did you share everything you wanted to share, Laura?
just saw a comment there. Check the chat for a comment from
Sure.
Melissa. We've got an 8th one if we're trying to narrow it down to 4, and I'll lower my hand for now.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so on the chat, Rochelle says community safety, public works, planning and development, and transit. Planning and development is not a business unit I'm familiar with. So Rochelle, when you are able, I would like for you to explain like what you would see for that business department. And Melissa Myers have commented D&I, which falls under the CAO office, has to sit on the panel that is not currently included on the list. Okay. Glenn Babcock, I am intrigued by programs and partnerships. Me too. Me too. I see transit as a customer engagement unit. Yeah. Regional recreation and community planning. And then Jamil, planning and development is in the master list. Okay. It's hard to just like read read text. I'm terrible at that part. So forgive. Everyone should forgive me tonight. I'm not having an easy day with the motor skills right now. So okay, so Oliver, you would like to share?
Yeah, kind of a similar train, more of a clarification question as part of it. Similar idea to Laura. I think I got a little confused when I was reading this before if this was a panel or an information booth. Like similar thoughts to Laura. If it's a panel, it's quite dense already. If it's an information booth, I think there's room to add.
Right.
And on that information booth end, I think it'd be interesting to include perhaps a representative from the Joint Regional Transportation Agency, now Move Nova Scotia. They have done a lot of work to kind of develop a regional transportation plan, including the HRM, and it would be interesting to see if they have anything to include from the end of a information booth. Now, if this is a panel, I don't know, but
Right, yeah, because that's the thing. I'm really glad that you're highlighting this because that's the thing. We are right now kind of looking at who would be good to present. We can have up to 8 information booths. So
okay.
I think that's the thing. It's like, it's almost like if people want to write in the chat, what are their top 4 presenters that they would like to have? And that's it. I'm going to screen grab that because that's the thing. It's like, it's really hard to, to write down at the same time. So if anybody wants to share like exactly their specific 4 presenters, and then I know it's long, but if you're able to also write in the chat, like what do you think are the 8? Because again, we're talking too that we may be able to invite provincial departments. Like I actually find it very interesting to, let's say, have transit, but also have the Provincial Department of Public Transportation, which is a part of the Accessibility Directorate. I have the slide for that from the last meeting that we could probably look at after. I think for now we're going to just stick with business units, but having them on board and seeing how they collaborate with the HRM business unit, which is Halifax Transit, right? Like kind of, that's what I'd like to kind of see. The reason why to invite a provincial department is just to kind of help the public understand what is in the jurisdiction of the municipality, what is in the jurisdiction of the province, but also how both the province and the municipality collaborate together, you know?
Yeah, and just to be crystal clear, I was on a leave, but it's both a panel and information booths simultaneously, correct?
Yes,
Okay,
correct.
gotcha.
Yeah, yeah,
That's good. That's all I got. Thank you very much.
yeah. No problem. Thank you. So next we have Jean Saint-Amand.
Really largely the same idea. I probably could have lowered my hand. It's important to make the distinction between the panel versus the booths. I think the
Right.
booths can be as comprehensive as we want it to be.
Yeah.
Obviously pending the desire from each of the business units to participate. We may need a hit list of sort of our top 5 in order to get our top 4 to actually participate, because there could be changes at the last minute. There could be departments that feel more prepared at that time to participate in the town hall versus another. So having our wish list with our key priorities in mind would be a really good thing to have up front.
Right. Yep. No, that's good. Rochelle?
Yes, thank you. Okay, I have like a very specific list and a couple things to say, so I'm gonna try to keep it, and then I can like type all this out after so that I was trying to do that before and then I accidentally pressed enter before I was actually ready to do it, so that's why it's just like threw it in there. Apologies. Okay. For the panel specifically, I have found in past years having 6 panelists actually is too long.
Yeah.
So keeping it like 4 business units plus diversity and inclusion, because usually Melissa says something, which she's already mentioned in there. And the ones that I proposed, I did put it in the chat, but I think community safety, public works, planning and development, and transit. In general, for who we invite to speak on the panel, I think it should be someone who could be as comprehensive as possible. So like, for example, in the past, the person who is in charge of like Accessibus has come, but can't answer questions related to like other panel related or other transit questions. And so like the person that we had talk to us in January, for example, would be a perfect person for this panel. Like somebody who is high enough, like high level enough in the business unit to be able to speak to like every component of it.
Yeah.
So that
Okay,
it actually, so that people can ask like what is related to their accessibility rather than like what someone who is not disabled would associate with accessibility, because I do think those things like don't always match. So those are the 4 that I'm suggesting for the panel plus Melissa. Like I in my mind, that's like a given and I forgot to add it. But so I think like 5 panelists in total, because otherwise it gets way too long and then people
I
won't
agree.
have time
Yep.
to go talk to people at their booths. In terms of booths, I also have a specific, well, a bit of a list that I had thought of, and then like hearing what people are saying, I think there's like room to invite other people who would have like related stuff. I think 6 booths tops. Like I know we can have 8, but I think like planning for slightly less room than what is considered like the norm is actually better in terms of accessibility and having people move through. So like if the total usually is 8 and we go for 6, it means there's more room to move around, at least in my mind, but perhaps that's already been negotiated. So just in my brain, I think 6 booths are sort of like the top. I was thinking Parks and Rec would be useful to have at the booth. There's usually not that many questions for Parks and Rec because things that are a little bit more like dire are coming up from people in the audience during like the Q&A part of the panel. And so Parks and Rec usually doesn't get any questions, but I know the people from Parks and Rec and they were saying that like they have a lot to say, but it seems to be more of like an individual conversation. So I think they'd be more appropriate for a booth area. I think having some repetition in people who are on the panel. Like I actually think having someone else from the Diversity and Inclusion Office would be useful to have as a booth, just so people can, you know, ask questions, hear more about like how diversity and inclusion impacts them on top of like not like on top of disability, because like intersectionality is something we need to consider and I don't think gets considered enough, especially, you know, from like a municipal standpoint. Unfortunately, it's just kind of like things get siloed and separated pretty regularly instead of actually being like put together. So having representation from the office, even like having like Laura there, I think would be really useful. Sorry to call you out, Laura. I mean, it's not really a call out. It's just like, I think people being able to talk to you specifically about like the community engagement piece, like that would be the most appropriate for like a booth setup. And then I think like this is where if people have ideas that aren't necessarily business units, but have like a really specific like municipal attention to something accessibility wise, like this is the place where it can be in like in the booth essentially. So like Oliver's, I can't remember what you said before, but it was something about like the move thing. You'll have to put it in the chat. I can't remember what it was. But yeah.
Oh yeah, it was the Move Nova Scotia.
Yes, yeah. So Move Nova Scotia, like that could be cool. But I do think we have to be careful about inviting too much provincial representation because I recall
No, but I think like for example, because you mentioned Parks and Recreation, okay? And I'm even just looking at recreation program. But the other thing, like for the province, okay, for the Accessibility Directorate, I'm gonna read it because it's like just so you guys know. They have their first accessibility standard that is now law, which is the Built Environment Accessibility Standard, making buildings and outdoor spaces like trails, parks, and beaches accessible. So it would be kind of cool to have Parks and Rec, but also having the Accessibility Directorate that will even be able to kind of like present about these new standards and how is the Parks and Rec, like the HRM Parks and Rec is collaborating with this new standard. Like what are they moving towards to be able to adapt to these standards? I don't know if that helps.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. I think like I do think it would be nice to have the Accessibility Directorate or someone from the Accessibility Directorate at the event. I think they'd be more appropriate for a booth,
right?
Because then they can answer like lots of questions, which are very widespread, I think, in like what they're doing. And like because this is a municipal like event, and it's like and you know, I think maybe I can't remember if we were talking about this in one of these meetings or if it was in one of our like smaller meetings that we have sometimes, where because this is a municipal event, we have to be careful about how many people from the province we invite so that it stays like municipal resources essentially. I can't remember exactly what that was, but I remember having some conversation about it at one point.
Yeah, well, so like I'll kind of help you guys out with that. With the Accessibility Directorate, there were several categories. There are 3 that I've seen that I would see it relevant to other, like to how we're interacting with business departments, like information and communication, which on their site says access to receive information that is understandable and shareable. We have the Provincial Department for Public Transportation, making it easier for people with disabilities to get where they need to go, which I don't really think you can go where you need to go in the HRM right now. in the frame that it is right now. We also have goods and services, ensuring equitable access to goods and services, which I have concerns about because I don't think we really have good access to goods and services in the HRM. But I won't go at length with that, but like, again, that's it. It's like kind of, I'm seeing like a collaboration, right? Because you have the Provincial Department of Public Transportation with like the transit, Halifax Transit, like how are they collaborating based on, because again, like this whole aim with the Accessibility Directorate is to keep us in line to be fully accessible by 2030, right? And it's just, it would be kind of cool to touch on that. Like how are they working together to ensure that that will be a possibility for 2030? Yes, Jamil?
Oh, can I say
Oh,
I
yeah,
like have
Rochelle,
one
yes.
last thing to say, and then
Sure,
like I'm done sort
absolutely.
of my
Yeah.
talking piece, and then move on to whoever, and I'll
Oh,
throw
yeah.
my like lists in the chat at some point for easy
Oh, yeah. Well,
legibility.
one thing that I want everybody to understand, it's like we have a presentation. They may show up at 5, and there's a possibility we can go on till 5:15, and right now it's 4:34. So we still have like ample time to go into details. So, Rochelle, if you want to share more, that's no problem.
Yeah, just my last point for
Sure,
now, at
yeah.
least, unless something else comes up.
Yeah, everybody can come back. So
Yeah. One thing I do feel strongly about, and I'm saying this as a queer person and also as someone who is pretty checked in with a lot of different marginalized communities, I do not think that we should have representation from the Halifax Regional Police, especially not as like a speaker. I think that that will be extremely harmful to multiple community members, whether or not people feel safe or protected by the police. A lot of marginalized people do not, and I think that would be a huge disservice to what this town hall is supposed to be about if we include them. So yeah, I feel very strongly about that. I had to say it.
True, but I
Here.
just come from a different level because like even just like in terms of advocacy, like I've talked with the Halifax Regional Police on my own terms, like having a conversation. For me, that's it. I don't believe, like, this is just me. I don't believe in like we don't talk to them. Like I'm a person who's very into confronting who is the problematic person, one-on-one, face-to-face. That's me.
Yeah,
But
and I
can
totally understand
respect that.
Yeah,
But it's just where does it end? Where we're, you know, because again, there are some things in specifics, especially like, let's say, for example, like now I'm way better, but like having gone in my disability, I'm outing myself a little. But yeah, PTSD in public, right? Like having that conversation with cops of saying, hey, I'm sometimes having a hard time reacting to a stressor, right? So that's what I mean. Like I go out in public and I react to stressors, especially if you're on the spectrum, your reactivity may be misconstrued as character without them being efficiently trained and autism informed, especially. They could misunderstand what is the other person's behavior, because we're still in a time where we think body topology is a science, which is pretty much not, right? And that's what I mean. It's like having that conversation with cops. I actually think, why not, right? But I get it. It's tricky. It is triggering as a subject, but for myself, where I'm coming from, I feel these conversations are necessary. But I will respect members of the community. If it makes them uncomfortable, I will definitely take that into account.
Yeah, and I do understand what you're saying. I just think like, yes, cops need education. This is not the place that they're going to get the education they need. And so I don't think they're appropriate to like present or like be there to like offer their services. But I understand what you're saying. Like,
well,
there's
it's just members of the
public
don't have a chance to speak to them directly. It would be interesting. Maybe there would be someone, including myself. Look, I had just declared stuff, right? Like, I don't know. And like, I don't know, like I see other marginalized communities working in conversation as well. Like I've seen it. I just think it can be done. But again, I will respect the fact that this is the current, the current maybe, and that's it. There's a difference between public opinion and published opinion, and I don't know what the full public opinion on this topic really is, because the published opinion may override it. Like if that makes any sense. Like, I just feel like sometimes having conversations and having them there and more engaged and understanding that we're putting them accountable to these things directly as all members of the public, not just like a table meeting inside a room, right? Like, this is like very publicly broadcasted in a way. So I sometimes think that open dialogue would lend to safety, right? Because if we keep excluding them and saying, oh, well, you're not gonna, I don't know. I really do. Yes, I struggle with this personally, with omitting, you know? But again, if ever there's anything that you wanted to add to this is no problem. Safe space as well. Like, I facilitate other conversation circles, and I have no problems with people wanting to bring up what they feel is important to talk about. So we're going to move on next. The next person, I will choose someone that hasn't spoken yet. I'm pretty sure, like Jamil, you'd have not, I think, because it's hard to tell when in discussion who was the first. So forgive me if I'm not assigning the person in line. So Jamil?
Sure. So I was going to start off with 1 point, but I really want to touch on 3 points. First and
Sure.
foremost, I want to agree with Rochelle. Sorry, Rochelle. I was going to call you Rachel. With Rochelle. As a person of color, as a queer person, and as a disabled person, I don't want to see the cops there. I
Okay.
am in full agreement with the idea that the cops being there is not a safe space for me. It would actually deter me from going to this event.
Okay.
And so, as we must open up the dialogue in order for us to have this conversation, I think, for like, not to say anything that is rude to anyone, but there have been more than enough ample opportunities for any form of police to open up their ears and to listen to the public and to respond to the public in a safe and secure manner. And I think that should not be the focus of this event. I think this event should be encouraging for people to learn more about the opportunities that are available to them and that will be presented to them in the city as we move forward. That being said, we have a goal by 2030 to be a quote unquote fully accessible province. I also have problems with that wording, because saying that we are fully accessible means that we have closed the door for improvements if things ever show up in the future. There is no, I come from a background of testing and software development, and the general rule is that you are never 100% safe or secure or tested for anything, and you must always be available to open up for future improvements if the needs ever so arises. So those are my first 2 points. The third point, being in line with the second point, I see that there is a lot of need for us to be a little bit more accessible in all areas. And I think there's been great talks with regards to the accessibility needs for our in-person, for like when people are out and about in the city and in the community, but many people also stay at home. And I don't hear too much about web accessibility and web content accessibility guidelines. A lot of people work from home. A lot of people spend a lot of time at home, have a lot of like their home base. They don't really leave too much, and they don't interact like very frequently. Maybe because they're immunocompromised or have some form of like something that doesn't allow them to leave the house. And so I think that maybe we should bring that component into the conversation where we talk about the technology aspect of things, especially as, I mean, I don't remember the last time I got emailed or mailed a document by the city, right? Like everything now is just posted online and is available online. And so if it is available online or posted online, can people get to it and read it or access it if they are using a pointer and a keyboard, or if they're using a screen reader? Are things accessible to them from that side of things? Because also reworking the internet is not an easy task, right? And so we have 2030 is really like a blink away. We will be there quicker than we anticipate. And so I think we should really also start talking about the technology side of things and the web content accessibility guidelines, and how we can also encourage not just the government or like the public sector, but the private sector, and enforce the private sector to move in that direction, because there's a lot of pushback with tech, where I mean, from a developer point of view, standpoint, where people are just like push features, push features, push features. We need more features out there, and we will worry about all of these accessibility things later. And this is a common theme that I find across the province, across the industry, and it's really doesn't fall in line with the direction that the province wants to go. And I think that, and I'll leave it at that with my comments. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So we have Anne Sinclair.
Yeah, thanks. This is Anne. So yes, I'm in agreement as well with Rochelle and Jamil and the other people who were talking about maybe it's not going to be fruitful or even acceptable for the police to be there. So that's my 2 cents on that. But in general about who should be there and what they should be talking about, one thing that I'd like to bring to everyone's attention is in speaking about the directorate. So that's obviously a provincial thing that Celine has talked about all the various levels that they're working on with transportation and communications. And the only one that they've actually accomplished to date, they're working on all those different sort of packages with committees, standard development committees, they call them. But the only one that's actually now legislated, as this committee may already know, is the Built Environment Accessibility Standard, which Celine mentioned. So in terms of the relationship of that to the city, what I would really like to hear the panelists address, and Melissa has posted too, like what would their updates be? I think it's an opportunity to so for those built environment standards to be to work, they need to be enforced, and people need to be informed about them. And a lot of that is going to come down to the municipalities. So I would like to know from HRM how they're incorporating those things in their development services and in their enforcement. So I noticed that planning and development wasn't on the list last year, and it might not be on people's top 4 lists for panelists this year, but perhaps we could consider that, given the new built environment accessibility standards, that they're not going to be enforced until April next year, but anyone who's designing anything or applying for a building permit or parks or anything like that needs to be incorporating them, and they will be doing that from now till next April, when the enforcement will begin. So that was one thing. Also, Public Works is involved in that, in their design and construction services departments. So maybe if they could be requested, if they want to give updates on how they're incorporating those things in their work. I also had a question. Is there any, like from 311 or from any of these business units, is there any record of what the public has been asking over the year? Is there any sort of common theme? Are there common themes that people in these units keep hearing about that they could address at the event?
I think I'm going to leave that because Melissa, you have your hand up. I know Councillor Saint-Amand, you had your hand up a little early. I'm sorry, I'm going to get to you first. I think what I want is to have Melissa speak first, just because she would have a lot more information and I may answer your question. So Melissa.
Thank you, Jill. I just want to say this is a great conversation, but I'm just going to try to jump into more or less maybe help guide the conversation a little bit more to come to a decision. So one thing, and I wrote this in the chat, but I'll say it again, when you think about inviting people on the panel, you want to think about inviting businesses who kind of deal with accessibility, work in this field on a day-to-day basis, because part of the panel conversation typically what would happen, each panelist would have 5 minutes to give an update on what they've done in the previous year around accessibility. So that is really important because I know there was great conversation happening around police, and I love that back and forth. But with that business unit in particular, they probably wouldn't be able to provide an update on like accessibility as a whole. So that would be another reason to consider that they wouldn't be the best fit. Probably just sit on the panel outside of, people's comfort level. And I think that kind of is the, people's comfort level too, because we want to make this warm and welcoming for all community and children. So I'm hoping that I can really get some guidance on kind of what way the conversation goes. And to your point about community development, I think you're making a good point around like there's new standards. So we just shit with community and development, but those standards would also affect another business unit, which would be property, fleet, and environment, because the business unit also is a unit that will often update rec centers, or they'll do new builds of rec centers or things like that. And so it wouldn't just directly to with planning and development. Just I wanted to let folks know that as well.
Great, and thank you. And yeah, I can definitely agree with everyone. Like, again, I'm been an advocate for the last 4 years, so I'm approaching like deep topics quite a bit. So maybe this is it. I take for granted that it's like I'm in those topics a great deal. So I apologize if that part was triggering, but yes, okay, I totally agree. We will not have the HRP part of this meeting. So what we'll do, we'll move on to Jean Saint-Amand, who had his hand up.
Yeah, just to respond to the question about whether or not 311 has some data that we might be able to use in order to help inform some of the direction for this. I had a conversation with them on Friday when I went through and had a tour of the facility, and we spoke to the director there just to find out exactly what kind of data was available, because we as counselors were looking for some of that as well. So they assure us it is available. It just might require a little bit of work to pull it in the form of a report, but broad strokes, they can absolutely provide information about what types of questions are commonly being asked, what the most common items are that are complaints versus just about anything else. So we should be able to get some pretty good information to use just by asking.
Yeah, no, that's great. I really like to get that going. That's actually a really great idea.
And my understanding is that
yeah.
they will actually have the capacity to break it down by district as well. So if we want to know whether or not there are differences in accessibility standards and what people are witnessing in rural versus urban versus suburban, we should be able to get that broken out, at least with a relative degree of specificity.
Yeah, that's good. I like that. Thank you. Glenn?
I hadn't realized I was already off mute. Okay, just with the org chart, we already see that there are a ton of business units out there, and we might be having difficulty deciding which ones to invite. And I don't want to necessarily widen the pool. Maybe this would actually help. But in addition to this committee, when I was at my first meeting for this committee, I got volunteered to represent the accessibility committee on the active transportation committee, which is interesting because I've hardly ever ride a bike in the city, but I walk a lot. So beyond those business units, what I was wondering is if there are already community engagement committees out there that may have an accessibility representation, like the Active Transportation Committee, that might give us some insight that crosses different business units within the city, in terms of what might be of interest to people. So I'm only aware of this one and active transportation, but there may well be other committees out there, and maybe people would like to know more about those and how they could get involved with those committees.
Thank you. So it's 4:53. The next presenters are going to join us at 5:15. So we would have still other things that we can discuss. I mean, one thing I'd like to bring up, because it is often something that we were talking, even in terms of recreation, like there is because again, I know that a lot of the business units change names and then there's new departments or these little pockets. But I know that there's a project that is aimed towards Safe City, which helps people who are out and about, especially as pedestrians, right, to go out and feel safe, especially after dark. And I know that is something that has affected my life being in Halifax for 18 years. I hardly go out. I want to go out, but I never have a sense where I can have like my safety insured to get home, because sometimes, let's say if you go to the Marquee, but you live in the West End, and I don't like taxis. I actually don't trust going into taxis because I've had my own moments. But also, in order to get home, it means walking through the Commons because there's no bus. However, right now, I'm saying the Marquise, now that we have bus number 1, I can actually get home. But still, the buses only stop, like they stop at like 12, sometimes it's like 12:30 is your last chance to take a bus to be able to get home safely. Meanwhile, we still have these venue shows that are going on till 2 in the morning, right? And then you have bar staff, you have other people, right? But even just in accessibility, I find that having a disabled existence too, it's like you can't go out like safely, right? Like there's not too many options to be able to go out. And I don't know if anyone would have anything to add to that, because sometimes, again, I'm looking at quite a broad plan, and every time I'm trying to narrow things down, sometimes I'm having a hard time even getting the scope. So if somebody has something to add about Safe City, about being able to access your city safely to go out, not even just like recreationally, leisurely, especially after dark, that would be a topic that I'd like to see. Any criticisms is also welcome. Yes, Shamil.
So I do have like this topic really does hit close to home, especially last night. My partner wanted to go out with their sister, and for the most part, they couldn't travel anywhere. They were stuck on Quinpool. It was a Sunday night around 9 p.m. Buses are already on a holiday schedule. Sometimes traveling and navigating the city is a very difficult task, right? Right now, there is a lot of focus on implementing buses and proper bus routes. I think we should talk about like extending either bus routes or figuring out a way or having that conversation so that bus routes can actually travel from location to location without needing an hour to an hour and a half of your day. It has been, especially in the past, like 10 days, I drive, right? Luckily, I drive, my partner doesn't. And so my partner has had to rely on me multiple times in order for me to like take them from one job to another job, or from school to like their next shift, because sometimes a bus might show up late, a bus might show up early, and now they have to wait for the next bus. And if they also do catch the bus, not only do they catch the bus, they also like have to wait in the bus for about an hour. So investing in public transit, I think, should be or like having that conversation around public transit would be beneficial beyond the scope of just disability, because we would reduce taxes on, or like tax resources on the road, right? We would reduce cars. I know there's a lot of negative sentiment towards public transit from like people in general. And it's maybe because right now, like the way that public transit is being handled isn't like ideal. It does not see like a lot of funding. And then also because it's not ideal, it's a feedback loop of like, see what I mean? Like transit sucks. This is why I need a car. And therefore like you're also adding expenses to everyone else's like day to day. You are either going to need to invest in a car and insurance and gas, which is emissions, right? And you are not incentivized to create a walkable city, which ends up, meaning that you don't create density, which, especially this, but you can't talk about public transit without also talking about zoning.
But
in
even
general.
just like social opportunity, because again, like even employment is tied to who you know, right? Like the second that because I went through some adversity without going into detail, but the second that I got a lot more ability to go out and to be able to go into the community, yes, that has completely helped me out. But if somebody can't afford to go out, cannot safely go out, especially to be able to come back home from going out, like that just lends into more isolation. It's not like disabled people are isolated as it is. We are just contributing to the problem even more deeper.
And can I touch on that topic?
Sure,
actually?
absolutely. Go for it.
As of right now, and this is a huge ableist problem, most jobs in the city require that you have a driver's license, whether or not you are required to drive for the job, even if it is an office job. This stops people who cannot drive or who are unable to drive from applying to these jobs. You are stopped at the door, even if you are qualified or beyond qualified, if you do not have a driver's license and or do not operate a vehicle. And so even the fact that we don't have reliable public transit in the city stops people from getting to jobs, right? Like getting my partner, again, I hope that they don't get upset the fact that I'm bringing up a lot of their experiences here, but like in reality, like I've been witnessing this for the past 5-6 months. Like it's already been a very tough job market, but on top of the tough job market, there's all of this seemingly unnecessary like red line or red tape that they need to overcome or hurdles that they need to jump over with regards to just being, as we invest more and more into becoming a driving city. Halifax is no longer a 15-minute city. Driving around the Windsor Exchange is a friggin' nightmare. Going across any bridge now, I don't know if anybody has been driving across that, it's just absolutely horrible. And it just seems like as we do make less and less decisions that are in line with making sure that we are accessible as a city, it's just stacking that backstepping that we have to do essentially. And so speaking of which, I would also like to see like what different bodies in the city, but different business units in the city might be able to talk about with regards to, job opportunities that don't require, all of these requirements that, so yeah, sorry. I know I'm now.
Oh no, listen, I can definitely
yes.
I can definitely share to tag about employment and having a car. That has been the main reason why I couldn't reach an employability. I have been lucky that one company has hired me because they saw the potential I had for this line of work, and I was able to sell myself as able to access the bus somehow to get to certain locations. I had to negotiate, and I'm very thankful for these employers for having given me casual work, but work that has help me qualify for more work, right? Like it's the stepping stone. But yes, that has been like the main barrier. As much as there are things that are tied to my disability that has made employability difficult, I always attribute the fact that not having a driver's license and the ability to drive a car in this city is the exact reason why so many people fall unemployed and then homelessness. Like it's just it just trickles down so bad. Yeah, no, it's absolutely devastating not having a robust transit system that accommodates to everybody's employment. It doesn't take our employment and education, because I know some people, especially way out in Cherrybrook, it's about anywhere from 3 to 6 hours commute by bus per day to go to Dalhousie University. That is gross. I don't like this, knowing this at all, and that's exactly it. I do believe we should put pressure on that for this town hall. Okay, so there's several people. I think the first to prioritize would be Elizabeth. Yes?
Yeah, just as this conversation, I guess, kind of begins to wrap up, just what I'm hearing, just even for the minutes, what I put in, what like panelists the committee wants. I'm hearing, so D&I is as always on the panel. I'm hearing transit. HRP, no.
No, but community safety, like just the topic of community safety.
The topic of community safety.
Yeah, like
Okay.
safe city, housing and homelessness, food security, because food security, especially because having, let's say, the Good Food Project back, they may even, because there's the mobile food network, like it would be great. And I've talked with these people like here and there, and I would know that they would love to present, and I know that it would even be good to have one booth where it would be like the mobile food network, even just having food on hand and talking about how they are working as an organization. Because even just when I showed pictures of the Paula Regan Hall, there's like a nook like off to the side where it's kind of the accessible entry and exit. There is like wiggle room to maybe even have a kiosk for food there.
Okay. The other question I had was about, I know 311/customer service has been brought up, and I believe Melissa mentioned in the chat has been included in the panel in the past. Is that something the committee wants? Is that a business unit they want represented on the panel?
I think that's useful. I think it's incredibly useful, especially as like Jean Saint-Amand was saying, like they have data of what is the public concern with accessibility.
Okay,
So
DNI,
yeah.
transit, 311 customer service.
And I remember that Melissa had, because a couple of years ago, I think I remember for the November 2023, there was mention of text service. Was this true, Melissa? Because I remember there was a possibility that you didn't have to call 311, you could text 311.
I don't believe so, not yet.
Not yet? Okay, all right. Because I was curious about that, because I know 911 is going to be a service that will eventually be also accessible through text. That's why I'm kind of curious for 311 if there is anything moving forward with that.
That is on the current accessibility strategy. That is related to one of the recommendations. So that's only an early conversation. So they probably wouldn't be able to speak a lot to that. But yeah, I'm not sure though.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you. So yeah, Elizabeth, did you have more to share? Because Rochelle has her hand up.
Sorry, I meant lower my hand.
Okay, no problem. Rochelle?
Oops. Yes, I I put together a list also to help Elizabeth because I
Thank you.
just like based on what we've been talking about and what it seems like some I don't know, strategically in that like the people who are presenting and like the business units that are presenting generally need to have like they're providing updates on like what they've done related to accessibility. And so for business units who like haven't really done that much and like need to be like kicked in the arse for lack of a better term to like get some stuff done, like I wish we could have them on the panel, but I think they actually need to be invited like to a committee meeting so that we can get them like the ball rolling with them. So I think like for the business units we've been talking about today that were like, they have a lot of work to do. We should request that we see them here at a meeting and then they present to us like the kind of work that they think they should be doing. And then we tell them our opinions on that, which is like kind of a, you know, a vibe. Which I enjoy doing. I love telling people my opinions. But with that said, I did write up a little list that I am sort of like proposing because I think we have to vote on a list today and like give it to Melissa to contact people. So I wrote something up in the idea of keeping it at like 5. With there being a possibility of like, you know, if someone's not available, we can add another person, etc. Something I was thinking about, well, I'll put that in first into the chat so people can see it. Oh, the formatting is going to be weird. Sorry, everyone. So essentially having Melissa from diversity and inclusion, community safety related to, and like I put a little topic area that they should be focused on probably based on what we've been chatting about. So community safety focused on homelessness, food security, and whatever else might come up in terms of accessibility, transit in terms of their services related to like hours and fleet, then also Accessibus and any accessibility training they've been working on. Hopefully there's some. And this is sort of telling them that there's an expectation they should be able to talk about that if they haven't worked on it at all. Number 4 would be public works around things like construction services, infrastructure, maintenance, accessibility standards. I think that'll cover a lot of things from some of the other departments that we've been speaking about. And then 311, which I think could also be related to information technology. Like I think there'd be some crossover there. So we'd at least hear from like a tidbit of what everyone's been talking about so far, but from business units who would actually have something to present to us, because they've actually like done something. I have another list for the booths, but I do wonder, just for sake of time, and this is a question from Melissa, if we can, you know, pick this conversation back up with relationship to the booths, or if you also need that information today.
Yeah, that's a good question. Melissa?
Thank you, Rochelle, and thank you, Jill. It would be great to at least have an idea of how many people can do. As we mentioned in the beginning, we only have 8 booths, and so we want to give the library a sense of like how many booths we might need. Not that this list has to be confirmed tonight, but it would be nice to have a good idea of the direction. And then one more thing back to the panel is that the group was also talking about planning and development. So I'm not sure if you would want planning and development on the panel. I know that was some of the conversation before. Thank you.
Yeah, community development. The one thing that I wanted to stress about community safety, like again, homelessness and food security for sure, but to add safe city, because it is, I think it is part of that business unit. So that's one thing I want to stress, because again, I feel it's really important. I feel like, again, to go out, but also go to work. If you're working after hours, right? Like, geez, trying to get home, just listen to people who work nightlife. Like it's hard. It's hard to feel safe to go out working, right? Like your options for employment aren't that great. Anne?
Yes, thanks. This is Anne. Yeah, just to answer Melissa's point about planning and development not being on what I see Rochelle's list is really great. And it sounds like there's so many things that are great to be discussed, that I would hate to boot anybody else off the panel. But I do feel strongly about the development services part of planning and development, because that's where enforcement lies. And I should have said earlier when I was talking about the new built environment standards, the other big thing that's happened this April is the Nova Scotia Building Code regulations. The accessibility part of that has come into force, and that's regulation right now. And so that is the responsibility of the building inspectors in HRM to enforce those. And I feel so optimistic that with the changes, anytime there's a change for accessibility within the regulations, it's such a great opportunity for real change in the built environment. But if it's not enforced, then it's not going to happen. So if Public Works, I see number 4 on Rochelle's great list, can somehow combine with the development services of planning and development, then that might solve that and not take up another seat on the panel.
I think that's a great idea. And I sorry if I cut, I was just also going to mention too, like I have an appreciation with your field of knowledge of being part of this committee for that. But yeah, I do agree where it's Public Works is that's what because again, it's like I was thinking, do we replace Public Works? But yeah, you're right. Like they could kind of co on that one. Okay, so right now it's 5:12 and from where is Elizabeth? Would we still have some time to chat some more? I don't know if there's anybody else who would like to share anything else. We have a couple of more minutes to talk about this. I really want to thank a lot of you too. You guys have really shared a lot tonight.
Sorry, I feel like I'm talking a lot today.
Oh no, listen,
Been-
no, this
been
is
in a lot
this
of
is
these
what it's
meetings.
about. I think
Cool.
we just haven't even had a chance to talk enough. I think I like sometimes that has been a bit my frustration. Like I want to have this conversation and then we just like boom, you only have half an hour, 45 minutes to get organized. So yes, please share, Rochelle.
Yeah, just related to the booth so that Melissa has something to go away from this meeting with. Could we tell the library that we want the 8 booths and then just like figure out if that is accurate later on and who's going to be like if we're planning for like the most that we can have and then sort of like we can spend a little bit more time on the booths in like a future meeting?
Yeah, I agree with you because again, like we don't know who will confirm. So I fully agree with that. I think it's already just great that we have like the panel kind of figured out. Elizabeth?
So, I mean, I'm just going to preface this with Melissa or Laura can absolutely jump in and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the question with the booth is more who is going to be at the booth. So Melissa and staff can line up someone to represent the booths. I don't think it's so much a question about the number of booths. Like we could tell the library we want 3 tables set up for booths or 4 or 5, or I think it's more trying to line up with HRM staff to have a person.
Yeah. I'm wondering about the feasibility with like because I had mentioned there's like a little cove at the Paula Regan Hall where I would kind of see that would be kind of a good spot to utilize.
Yeah, and I think Melissa, or sorry, not Melissa, Laura, put that in the chat that when we did a site visit today, just staff to kind of look at the space and assess it, and the booths would kind of be in a single line along the back wall. I know, Celine, you're familiar with the space. The
Yeah.
idea was kind of that
Like the curtains
the
can
panel
close,
would be, the curtains would close, like
Yeah.
after the panel is over, the curtains would open and then the
Right.
booths would be set up in that kind of hallway area there. And I see Laura has her hand
Sure,
up
yeah.
as well.
Laura?
Hi, yeah, and I think just really quickly, and Melissa can correct me if I'm wrong, but that vestibule area that you're talking about, Celine, I think the idea was that I would be set up there with some materials, and I think we could think about Rochelle's idea to have maybe some other D&I folks there with me. I personally liked that idea, but using that vestibule to have, for example, the accessibility strategy in various formats.
So could I actually lend maybe an idea about that? Because it's just because it is in Cove, like I'm talking about where you're going down the ramp, there's like a hallway, it's kind of enclosed. Like members of the public is not necessarily going to see that table that I'm actually wondering at the top of the auditorium would maybe be a better place for that table to be located. That's what I was kind of wondering. Because then it would be visible to the public. Because if you're in that cove, some people will walk into the auditorium from the bigger public exit. But I see Mary Barry has her hand up, so she may be able to answer these questions for us.
Hi, yeah. So there's a couple of different options that you can do in Paula Regan Hall, and it depends on what you want to accomplish. But what we have done in the past for these type of events is we actually close the big wall to Paula Regan Hall, and everybody enters through the ramp on that side location. And so that means you're going to hit everybody. Everybody going into the space will walk down through the ramp and in. If that's how you want to do it, or we could open up the walls in the back and you can have a table at the back. We find generally for most of our large scale events, we do try to direct people down the ramp so that everybody's using the same entrance. There's not an accessible entrance and a main entrance. It's everybody's accessing in the same way.
Thank you for that. That really helps. The only reason why I would have liked to have the back panels open was for the fact that I understand a lot of people are going to show up for this town hall with the intention of showing up specifically for the town hall. I think the reason why I'm attracted to having the back part completely open is just members of the public just being able to walk in and be able to participate, even if they didn't have this plan. Because often I attend like events at the Paula Regan Hall, and most often you see a lot of people kind of like joining in. I think that was kind of the reason why I'd be biased towards that. I totally understand that, it is true. It could be frustrating. It is frustrating if you're disabled, if you have mobility issues, and you're always having to be tossed aside to go into one entrance. I agree. I agree with that as well. So I'm kind of torn between those two.
Yeah, it is. And that is the beauty of that wall being open, is that people who just happen to be in the library can see what's going on and can pop in or just stay and listen for a couple of minutes and then continue on their library visit. So there's benefits in each way. I will say, generally speaking, and Melissa might be able to answer this, sometimes when there's live streaming of the event, with the sound, there's issues why you might want to have the back wall closed.
Okay,
But it's totally up to sort of the logistics of the day. We can do it either way.
Sure. Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. So we have, okay, Rochelle, and then after that, we'll move on to the presentation, the next presentation.
Yeah, sorry, it's me again. Although technically I had another thought before, but there were some questions to answer. If I recall correctly, Elizabeth, you also needed us to like decide/vote on if this would be a hybrid event. If I read that email correctly and I didn't just imagine that for some reason.
No, that's correct. Yeah.
Okay, great. Which in the case that like, do we need to be voting on these things right now? Like, is it sort of a motion, or is it just kind of like, this is what we think we should do, let's go for it?
It's not necessarily a motion, just kind of a consensus of or by the committee.
Got it. Well, I would like to generally put forward, not as a motion, but as a general thought, I suppose, that this event must be a hybrid. We've done it the last couple of years. It really is an important like aspect of accessibility, and that's kind of the whole point of this committee and the town hall. So I am very for making this a hybrid event like it has been the last couple of years. And that is the last thing I will say, hopefully.
No, it's all good. Well, no, thank you too for assisting at this meeting. It would have been impossible for me to kind of like to be listening and typing it. So thank you for breaking this down. This really helped us carry us all forward. All right. So now thank you everybody for sharing on this topic. Okay, so we're going to go to our next presentation, which is a fun presentation, and I like try to make it a little bit more fun for everybody because everybody's wondering what the heck is going on. And so the next presentation that we have here, we invite Rich and Sienna Padulo to deliver a presentation. They will be using slides. The legislative assistant says that it'll take 10 minutes. We have ample amount of time to have fun with it. This is on the TREAT accessibility program that they're proposing for us to take on in the HRM. So I will invite Rich and Sienna to speak.
So Rich,
Sienna's on a school bus right now. So,
oh, you're on a school bus. That's so cute.
yeah,
Nice.
she
Awesome.
travels 90 minutes one way to school every day to be at the school she wants to be at. So she's on the bus to talk to you guys. Sienna, hi. Can you unmute?
Yeah, hi everyone. Thank you so much for having my family and I here today. I know it's super exciting for us. And we're very excited here to present Treat Accessibly. So as my dad said, yes, I'm on a school bus, so I hope we have minimal interruptions. But it's just, I'm very excited today to present the movement. I'm currently a student of Toronto French School, and I'm part of the founding family of Treat Accessibly. And it was thanks to my dad that we managed to grow this movement since 2017. And how it started was that my dad and I were setting up pumpkins on the stairs to our front, leading up to our front door, and we noticed a family walking down the street, and one of their sons was using a wheelchair, and both my dad and I stopped, and we thought, how is he going to trick or treat at our house because of the stairs? And we were both heartbroken by this fact that just something as simple as stairs was excluding him from participating in a national holiday. So from there, he helped me grow this movement where we remove stairs from the equation and make Halloween accessible, and we try to eliminate those barriers. Here, I'll leave it to my dad to present some of the more technical steps, but
Thank you very much. Our daughter, Sienna. I'm just going to click share now. It chokes me up every time thinking about this, but yeah, to see her in action is wonderful. So what we're going to share is the fact that that started at our home. The next year, because homeowners saw it around the street, they asked to have a sign. And then in the years, it progressed to be a national movement with over 250,000 homes presenting our Halloween lawn decor sign. And it really all started that first Halloween because it wasn't one family with a child with using a wheelchair who came. It was 7 families who came up to 4 kilometers away with children with a variety of different disabilities who shared. Nobody's ever done this before. So we got into it and we figured it out. And you asked the question, how do you treat accessibly? It's quite easy. We distribute what we call our free Treat Accessibly lawn signs across Canada. You put that on your lawn like we did that first Halloween, and it identifies your house to the community that you will be accessible. You remove all stairs and barriers, and you just treat from your stoop, your driveway, or your garage. You remove any triggers, and you make yourself and your treat station highly visible. You permit kids to stay close to their parents. We educate on both nonverbal and non-visible disabilities as well. And you look out for interaction cues from parents. They'll help you along the way. And we include non-edible treats. That's how really easy it is. And it's actually really fun to treat from the driveway because you get to meet and see everybody. Well, we started in 2017. We truly took off with news coverage in 2019. And our goal is to make trick-or-treating 100% accessible for children with any disability at any home. And what we've been doing is bringing together good neighbors, government, thank you for listening, and the private sector for a meaningful, unifying conversation about accessibility every Halloween. We know we can do it because Canada has said yes, they can. No can't in Canada. This is our 2025 action and awareness ecosystem. 716 retail locations will be distributing signs across Canada for free. Over 250,000 people already have signs. We're going for more every year. We also host village events where we close down a street for an afternoon on a Saturday in cities across Canada to really show the world what an accessible Halloween looks like if everybody did it. And there's so much fun. And we have one in Halifax every year, as well as 8 other cities across the country. Kinder, I don't know if any of you or if you have kids who know Kinder. Kinder puts the message of treat accessibly on every single bag of Halloween chocolate sold across Canada in over 10,000 locations. We have over 100 million impressions through social media, and we've almost hit 500 million in impressions made by the news over the last 4 years. Every year, more and more news tells the story because they believe in it. This is our Take One units as they appear in the Pet Value family of stores, 716 across Canada. We chose them because pet lovers, dog lovers, typically get out on the street and are talking to neighbors more often. So it's wonderful to have them as our core anchors. And the picture to the right shows a family on a lawn getting ready for treating accessibly. And this is the kind of social engagement that a family will give to the world to help them become aware of the movement. This is a close-up on the Kinder bag. So on the back of the bag, there is a huge Treat Accessibly mark with our story QR code link to our website to learn more. And on the front, Brighton Center. It's learn more about accessible trick-or-treating right on the front of millions of bags. We haven't stopped with Halloween treats. Dogs deserve treats too. And every year we bring on more partners to share the story. And this is a bag of Northern Biscuits will be on shelves beside our free lawn signs. And to make it possible, I know we have a little fun, but it's a Halloween movement, so we should have fun. This is an image. Last year we had 170 million impressions from across Canada from our villages. This is from Calgary to give you a snapshot and an idea of what it looks like. But don't worry, I have an interview from Halifax in here too at the end. From Heather Hiscox to morning shows across the country to ministers at the federal level, provincial level, and mayors from Calgary and Edmonton. They literally love championing this movement. That is the mayor of Calgary in a Crayola, true blue crayon costume at our village this past October in Calgary. We've also gained the support of creators within the accessibility community. I'm sure many of you know Spencer to the West. He championed the movement last year, as well as other families with children with disabilities. Our goal is simple, 800,000 homes to support the 800,000 kids who identify with a disability. But that also supports 1.6 million parents and millions more family, friends, and caregivers. And Halloween, as you can imagine, is the largest community shared holiday, multi-generational holiday of the year. So we feel that that is a wonderful platform to start this dialogue and continue this conversation. 7 million homes treat at Halloween. We don't expect to get all 7 million of them treating accessibly, but the more we have this dialogue, they'll start thinking about accessible Halloween and imagine the positive ripple effect of compounding stories about accessible inclusion every Halloween and how easy it is to do. You guys have already taken steps. We would like to proclaim October 16th every year, Treat Accessibly Preparation Day across the country. And in order to help people learn or remind those that already do to treat accessibly on Halloween night. In support of Halifax, including that message, we are already locked and loaded to launch the Awareness and Action Ecosystem in Halifax and all of Atlantic Canada, all of national Canada, from August to October 2025. And then in October, we launch our Halifax Atlantic specific PR campaign to bring awareness to the movement and how anyone can do it. And on this page is the interview from Halifax Global last year. So you can see the 5 minutes that we dedicate to accessible inclusion. And imagine that we had 232 mentions in the media last year, 90 TV alone. And that can really tell a story to the world. I mentioned this, but imagine signs in rows in neighborhoods, because the way it typically works is one home does it on a street, they learn more about it, and then every year more and more join in. And we're not doing this in a vacuum. It's not only about Halloween. We align with the Accessible Canada Act by hacking the broadest, high intergenerational, multicultural community tradition of the year, which is Halloween. We look to educate and normalize inclusion. We dream of accessible Halloween being as automatic as candy and costumes. And we want to prove there's a future where accessible traditions can be embedded in everyday Canadian culture. So that is a short summary of it. I'm not sure how much more time we have, but we're very open to answering any questions. Please let us know how we can include it. But there's just one final thought that we want to share is the quickest way to foster mass inclusive action is to not ask people to do something new. It's help them adapt what they're already doing. And with 7 million homes already trick-or-treating, we think we got a great shot that since we've proven so many, and that is the first sign on the left 99 likes on social media, and then it expands to what we see today. Now I'm done. Thank you very much to the committee and all members for listening.
Great, and thank you for presenting. I really appreciate you guys approaching us on this topic. So we're going to go down the speakers list, and the first one is Rochelle Manette.
Thank you. Thank you for that presentation, and thanks for doing some really incredible stuff. I almost feel emotional. I'm like, I do not, yeah, it just, I've talked enough in this meeting, but I did want to share a little, what you're doing is also for disabled adults in a lot of ways. I have a friend who is a kid, and I often go trick-or-treating with them. And I lose my own stamina very quickly because of how far things are apart. And there was one year we went and I couldn't go up the stairs to the door. And the kid that I was with doesn't quite understand, oh, why isn't Rochelle coming? Because they're little. And so they were sad that I couldn't come up the stairs with them. And I was like, oh man, that's so, you're really hitting on a lot. You're pulling on my heartstrings quite a bit. And I'm just like, oh, I want to only go to accessible trick-or-treating venues now. I also think I know the person, one of the people who sort of runs it in Nova Scotia. Do you know Sarah Moore? Is that the person that I'm thinking of? Maybe it's too big anyways. And you don't know everyone who's involved, but I'm pretty sure that
it.
Yeah. But I'm pretty
we
sure I
love
know the
Sarah.
person who's involved here. Yeah, cool, right? Sarah rocks. Sarah's great. So yeah, I want to thank you wholeheartedly for what you're doing, and especially that it just came from a single interaction that you were kind of oh, that hurts a little bit. So thank you both for being game changers, essentially. I think yeah, I'm very yeah, I'm thankful to you just as an adult with a disability who wants to go trick-or-treating also.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't have any questions. I want to cry.
Next we have Councillor Laura White representing District 7.
Hi, thanks for coming. That's fantastic. I'll definitely change my setup going forward. My question was just, are there other options for signs? Could I get a paper one for my window?
Absolutely.
I would rather that than
absolutely.
all that plastic, you know what I mean?
Well, Laura, you nailed it. The signs are designed in such a way that they're recyclable, but they're also built to last. So
Yeah.
they're able to be, it basically becomes a part of your Halloween decor.
Yeah.
Because once you have a child, thank you for treating accessibly, there's no going back. But what we also do is we permit printable signs off our website.
Okay.
Everything is free. So you can just go to our website, print your own, have fun with it, make it as big or small as you want.
There you
And
go.
you can just print on your own computer printer if you want. So it's totally ready for you.
Fantastic.
We've seen some really fun ones with people printing them and using hockey sticks to put them up across the country. So you can, the sky's the limit.
I've definitely seen one of your signs in the HRM, and yeah, now I get it.
Oh,
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Next we have Councillor Jean Saint-Amand representing District 16.
Thank you both so much for bringing this program to light. The accessibility side of things in my own setup was more or less by accident. I started using my garage for a long time because we have a couple of people in my neighborhood that are wheelchair bound, or there's a couple of kids with autism, and so they didn't feel comfortable coming up to the front door. So we just kind of naturally adapted to that anyway. The idea that there could actually be a national level program to bring awareness to that methodology is fantastic. So I wholeheartedly support it. I'll be posting like crazy about it in the lead up to the Accessibility Preparedness Day. But I'll also be socializing it with my neighbors too, because some of them are part of some national chains that may have an interest as well.
Oh, thank you. That is
Thank you
amazing.
both.
And that is how this all grew. I'll tell you, one of our friends works at Remax, and he called in 2018. We had just printed 100 signs for the neighborhood, and he called and he said, "Rich, can I get 2,000? My agents want to distribute them." And that's how it grew from there every year. And then Canadian Tire supports the villages. Kinder does this. Remax every year prints the signs. More and more every year to go out. So it's really wonderful. So thank you. Any action like that is huge.
That's excellent. Thank you.
Great. Next we have Anne Sinclair.
Oh, thank you. This is Anne. Yeah, I'm just so happy to know more about this. I had heard about it, and it's just wonderful. I don't have anything else.
Thank you.
Next we have Jamil Sino.
This is fantastic. Thank you so much for bringing this to light. I'm very appreciative. I think Laura did touch a very important subject. I am very cautious and conscious of the amount of plastic that may show up with signs. So I would also love to see, like, as we talk accessibility and we talk, Halloween already has a lot of single-use products that come year round. I would love to see a way for us to maybe tackle you mentioned that this could be long-term and longevity for some of your signs, and they're built to last, but also that's sort of like a catch-22, because if it was built to last, even if people are no longer using it, it could still remain as trash, really, as people are no longer like using that. So sort of to just think about that as we move forward. I know that people have the options to download things in their house, but maybe people don't have access to printers at home, and getting to a library, as we discussed earlier, and you weren't here, but in our conversations, might be a little bit difficult. So just something to consider, because I have a hard time with tackling recycling, because plastic isn't really recyclable. It's usually single use. And if it is to be recycled, it's to be melted at very high heats, which causes more emissions from the plastic, also further impacting the environment. But I really appreciate everything that you guys do, and this is fantastic. You guys are doing such great work. And Sienna, I look forward to your cat cafe when you open it up. I would love to be there. I'm a huge cat fan myself.
Great. We have Kathy Stevenson.
I just have one. It's an odd question, kind of irrelevant, probably. What are the signs made out of exactly? Are they like a foam core, or they're just straight plastic, or?
Great. Thank you for your question. The steel is a wire frame. It's a steel frame. So highly durable, beats all the winds. And then the bag is a plastic bag that goes over the steel frame.
Okay. I was just curious.
Next, we have Glenn Babcock.
Okay, so I really appreciate the movement that you have. Especially, I have a non-verbal grandson. I'm sure I can think about him. He's getting to that age when he's going out trick-or-treating. It would certainly be more welcoming for him, I think. Over the years, I think in terms of handing out treats, I became a little bit more accessible, because instead of waiting for the doorbell to ring, I moved out onto the porch. That was fine, except we lived on the end of the street and people couldn't see me sitting on the porch, so I moved out to the front lawn. It worked a lot better after that. People knew I was there and I knew who was coming. So I can certainly see where some of these things would make it a lot more accessible for a lot more kids. I can certainly bring this up with my local Lions Club. I think they would be interested in it. Children are a priority of the Lions, and they do things related to Halloween every year. So I'm sure that would get a good reception with them. I guess I'm a little curious about one thing, and that is you mentioned government involvement, and I guess I'm just wondering what sort of government involvement you're looking for. Is it mainly just an endorsement in local areas?
Thank you. That's a wonderful question. So Treat Accessibly accepts no donations from the public or government, all we would like is action. And from the government standpoint, it is awareness and support, leveraging your channels to communicate it to the world. And that's all we ever ask for. But
everybody likes free stuff, including government.
well, I hope so. Especially if you help people do something good, it's pretty phenomenal what the response is. And it's really just doing what you already do, just a little bit differently. And I do want to circle back to your Lions Club. We have an event scheduled for Halifax on September 27th, the Treat Accessibly Halloween Village, and we would love to have you there. You get a treat station, and we bring all the treats. It's all free. So happy to connect on that if you guys want to be there in a big way. We have about 800 to 1,200 kids, depending on the weather, show up with all their families. So it's quite a few people, and we just close down a street in Halifax and by permit. We don't do it unilaterally. We don't annex it. And then yeah, it goes really well. It's beautiful.
Okay, well, my club is a little bit outside of Halifax, but I'm sure that there would be clubs in Halifax that would be very interested in being involved. So I'll see what I can work out for you.
Oh, they'll never feel a better energy, I promise.
And I'll be happy to put up a sign.
There, thank you, Glenn.
Thanks. And for the September 22nd, I'd love to participate. As you
Oh,
can
it's the
tell,
27th?
it's a what?
It's the 27th, Saturday, September 27th. We start that early because we start in Halifax.
Oh, okay.
Apparently you guys get some iffy weather. So we
Yeah,
start
it's
in the East Coast and we go to the West Coast over the span of the month.
Okay, that's great. But yeah, you could practically count me in. If you haven't noticed, I'm really into Halloween.
Oh, I'd love it. Thank you.
Okay, great. So the next person is Oliver Keith, next member.
Great. Thank you. Great presentation to both of you.
Thank you, Oliver.
So one question. So a lot of these, like, I guess, seasonal type events, Halloween included, are really like they're deeply connected, I think, with local groups, community, specifically within accessibility spaces. Autism Nova Scotia has their own Halloween type events. The Arthritis Society of Canada has local events as well in their office, Atlantic Canada. Wondering, and you have probably thought about this before, but within like these local settings, how do you collaborate with the kind of community initiatives that already exist? I'm thinking in these larger events, and do you have that kind of communication chain between the two of them?
Oliver, it is a great question. You're looking at 2/3 of the movement's organization horsepower on this phone, on this call. All of this is organized out of the kitchen. If anyone reaches out to us, we provide ways we can support them, but on the individual level, we don't work with individual organizations. We do more of a push out based on our bandwidth and our capabilities. And any organization we're happy to support and work with, absolutely. But we don't reach out on an individual basis. We hope they connect with us. Luckily, most organizations in the accessibility space have heard about the movement thus far and share it, repost it, etc. But to answer your question, yeah, we don't speak to every single individual one.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you, Oliver.
Great, thanks. And now it's my turn to speak. The one thing that I had as a question is, are there any emphasis on offering like peanut-free options, like peanut-free bags?
Absolutely. So within our information, it's kind of like a 101 on accessible trick-or-treating. We offer recommendations on the types of edible treats, but we also offer recommendations on non-edible treats. So there's a variety for children who eat orally and not. So yeah.
Okay, great. And the other thing that came to mind, because and I'm really excited because like my street, we all have stairs. And one thing that was inspired to have more fun with it was during the pandemic, we made a slide for the candies to slide down, and it kind of stayed because a lot of houses in my neighborhood do that. So I'm definitely brainstorming already, looking forward to October 31st to see what I'm going to do with my stairs, because make it kind of a game or something.
I love it.
But the one notable thing about my street for almost like the last 7 years, there is an old folks residence nearby my house, and what they do every year, they do bring some elderly around in their mobility chairs to trick or treat. So there's clearly sometimes, yes, we understand that Halloween is for kids. However, there are some people out there that are kind of like kids at heart and stuff. And it would be almost beneficial to even address that sometimes it would be just such a great opportunity for elderly, especially, to be able to go out and about in their community, to go trick-or-treating, because you should see the happiness on these people's faces, to be participating in Halloween.
I could only imagine. Well, actually, I can't. I can. I've seen it in real life. We've hosted 28 villages across the country to date to over 50,000 people. And we have seen adults with disabilities. We've seen grandparents with mobility devices coming and enjoying it together. But we've also seen it on our own street. And in that kind of microcosm and macro setting. So what we really hope is that more and more people start treating from outside. If a kid can be outside for 3 hours, adults can do it too. And we really see a fascinating change in the community culture between neighbors. Neighbors who don't speak often can spend almost 3 hours chatting with each other, but on the subject, on the basis of Treat Accessibly, bringing them together for something important for the community. And yes, there's treats on both sides of the treat. So there's awareness and education for those who participate in Treat Accessibly, but on the other side of the treat, it's multi-generational. You're absolutely right.
Right. Thank you. And I also even like how you had highlighted that it's also multicultural. Like, it is true. It's like so many different cultures come together
Absolutely.
on that night.
Absolutely.
Great, thanks. So what we're going to do in the committee, we are going to pass a motion, which will require a mover and seconder. So the Accessibility Advisory Committee recommends that the Executive Standing Committee request a staff report to consider recognizing October 16th annually as Treat Accessibility Day as part of a Treat Accessibility initiative. So I would like to ask for a mover, and we have Laura White as the mover. Who would like to be the seconder?
Second.
So we got Jean Saint-Amand as the seconder. Now we will pass this motion. Who would like to say aye or raise hands? Aye or raise hands? Yes.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Anyone opposed? Who would be opposed to this? I'd like to know. Come out of your shell. Seems like nobody's okay. Great. So we have the motion has been carried. So thank you so much for
If it wasn't
presenting.
the video call, I would have held out for candy.
Thank you very much. You come to our Treat Accessibly Halloween Village, and I'll get you candy and non-edible treats, whatever you like, Glenn.
Yeah, and
Thank
I really,
you. Or I'm not allowed to do that, maybe. I don't know. But thank you very much. We're very touched. And this is incredibly educational and informative for our daughter. She carries it back to her friends at school, tells them everything about this. And she actually will be meeting with the Chief Accessibility Officer of Canada come the end of the month. So thank you for helping her. Yes.
right. Yeah, and I want to thank you, Sienna, for braving this staff meeting in a bus. And I can see the sun is just shining on your face right now. It's a beautiful day. So thank you so much.
It sure is. And just thank you once again for giving my family this opportunity. It's an incredible experience, and we're very pleased with the outcome and see all the support. Once we were done our presentation, everyone had something positive to say about the movement, and it's just heartwarming to see how engaged everyone was.
Great, thank you. It appears, Laura, you would have something to share?
Yes, I was just wondering if we could know where the village is here in Halifax and get an invite sent so we can mark it.
Absolutely. Edward Arab Avenue for the
right on.
fourth year this year.
Okay. Thank you.
But I guess through Elizabeth, I can share details of the event. We're actually opening registration at the end of the month because we typically go over capacity. So we're going to try to find out how many people want to come starting early. So if we have to, we'll figure out how to get more treats.
Awesome.
Great, thank you. And I'll definitely be on the lookout for Elizabeth's correspondence on that. Thank you. Thanks. Okay, so it is 5:52 and now we are pretty much closing this meeting as there are no more added items. The date of the next meeting is June 16th, 2025. So yeah, excuse me, I have a frog in my throat. So I guess that's it, the end of the meeting. You would think after a year of being chair, I would know. Oh, and Elizabeth is joining in. Yes?
So, sorry, I'm just kind of looping back to the town hall. I just wanted to confirm, I know the committee kind of confirmed the list that Rochelle had sent through the chat. I know P&D, representative from planning and development, had been discussed as well. Is that kind of a 6 panelist that the committee is agreed upon?
Rochelle, you want to answer this? Yes?
If I recall, sorry, if I recall correctly, I think Anne had said that if planning and development can somehow be like squished in with public works, like if the things that planning and development would want to talk about can be squished in with public works, then there isn't a need for a 6th panelist. But I agree with Anne that I think it was Anne who said it. Sorry if I'm misremembering.
Yeah, it was Anne.
Okay, cool, great.
Yeah.
Yeah, then like if that's necessary, then a 6 panelist would probably be okay. I think in the past we've had 6, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
But if I'm remembering correctly.
I know my bias.
Right. I think we'll have to consult with staff, just since planning and development is a separate business unit that might require an additional panelist, but that's something we can take back and chat with staff about. Sorry, I cut you off.
Sorry. Well, I'm also just terrible. I always cut in. It's a habit. So, but yeah, I kind of am intrigued by what Anne has proposed, like to have that I would prefer having like planning and development instead of public works, because I feel like public works, we touch on public works a lot enough, but I do believe that would also just tie in really well if we could get the accessibility directorate as part of the town hall. It may even become more inviting for them to want to join, given that. Yeah. So I don't know.
Perfect. Yeah, that's something we'll have staff will have to take back.
Okay, great. Thank you. So I think it's safe to close this meeting. Yes. Is there anything else that anybody has anything to add, especially for the town hall while we're here? We have 5 minutes before 6.
Oh, yes. Can I?
Yeah, okay, sure. Yeah.
This is going to be a hybrid event. I should just bring it a note or mention that we should take a look and see if we can get any sign language interpreters for video as we stream this event as well.
Yeah, that is true, because the technical part about it, and I know, Elizabeth, you mentioned, we talked about it this week because we normally had at this meeting interpreters, but I believe that there is something that you could add to this, to Jamil's question.
So interpretation services, as far as I understand, and Melissa, you can jump in here if needed, have always been used at the event, along with cart services. So that would be that will be arranged by staff.
Great.
Is that correct, Melissa? That interpretation services are always
That is correct.
Okay, perfect. Melissa's the town hall expert, so.
Thank you, Melissa.
Hey, okay. So anyone, last call for comment, questions? Going once, going twice, inching towards, okay. So again, as I said previously, the date of the next meeting is June 16th, 2025. And for this adjournment, if I'm not forgetting, we just need a mover for this. Yes,
that's
who would
great.
like to move this meeting?
Rochelle, this is Rochelle. I'll move to adjourn.
All right, so Rochelle has moved this meeting and this meeting is now adjourned. Thanks everyone for participating in tonight's meeting.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks,
Bye.
everybody.
Everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
See you
Have a
see you
good
in a
night.
month.